one unique thing that America has been this kind of culmination of ego flexing or status seeking alpha whatever. That America has really taken that to new heights, and that's part of this kind of like international cultural attraction that America is. And then you're saying, and out of that, paradoxically, has grown these ideas that are sort of like anti that, like body positivity, or just like general anti-capital. There's a general sentiment in the woke of that anyone who's really successful or rich or hot is bad and greedy, and that the kind of losers are really the like good people, and that we should be praising the losers, and that we should be incriminating the Elon Musks and the Brad Pitts of the world. That's kind of this new woke thing, and the body positivity is one example of that.
Right. I don't know like how new that idea is. Isn't that like a Christian concept of like the meek shall inherit the earth? I don't know anything about fucking Christianity though, so I really shouldn't have just said that because I don't even know what I'm saying.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that I didn't think about it, but it for sure, that idea for sure has been there ever since Jesus' teaching of the meek shall inherit the earth, or the other famous saying that's the meek shall inherit the earth is, it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah, that's a super famous saying. So no, that saying goes. It certainly predates wokeism.
Yeah, right. So what is this? What is this psychological reaction to the basic structure of human psychology? Right? We have to acknowledge that these hierarchies develop based on the internal psychological structure that has deep origins in evolution, and then we're unlikely to surpass it in action and philosophy and even just conceptually, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like I want to. You pointed out that this Christian, the meek shall inherit the earth, and it's fucking me up because I didn't think about that connection. That there's beliefs in religion, because it's not just Christianity, but Buddhism. A lot of world religions sort of teach that pursuing wealth is not the path towards spiritual enlightenment or whatever. Like a lot of religions teach that. So there's truth and there's wisdom in that. And I'm wanting to differentiate that wisdom from the woke thing. So I guess what I'm saying is, in the woke thing, there's baby and bathwater, and we have to throw out the bathwater but not throw out the baby. And I don't want to just. I think the woke movement probably likes this idea that in Christianity and in Buddhism that they're ragging on the rich people, and the woke people are like, yeah, look, see, Jesus and Buddha were saying the same shit. Rich people are fucking awful.
Yeah.
And they were, but I think that there's an important differentiation to make between what the woke people are saying versus what Jesus and Buddha were teaching.
Wow, I can't help you in this investigation.
Here's the little clue that my brain was wrestling with that I think leads to the answer is, I think what's wrong about the woke whining. First off, I don't think Jesus or Buddha were whining and complaining about it, Whereas the woke people, they're whining and complaining about it. And I think that in the woke whining and complaining, it's sort of like, I deserve what Elon Musk gets to drive a Lamborghini. I deserve a nice car. There's sort of this like lack of, I think there's an entitlement. I think the woke people are whining in an entitled way because they want to get to like order Grubhub and watch Netflix and chill out and go on vacations but not have to work so hard. Whereas the Elon Musks get all those things, but they work their fucking ass off. And so I don't want to say that the woke thing doesn't have any of the religious wisdom in it, but I don't know. I really smell a lot of like entitled wanting to have an easy life. And then the other thing in there is they kind of want to be superior. There's like a superiority thing. There's a righteousness in their thing.
What if Jesus was ultimately like self-centered and like totally whiny sniveling, and that's how, like, what if he went around and was like, oh, I don't like that you guys are doing this, like, and like, we don't know, actually know, but the story is told. You're so right. The story is told that Buddha like was born into all the riches, and he abandons it into a life of austerity and through some process, right? Isn't that how the story goes?
Whereas the woke person, they don't have that much money necessarily, but they want to go to the fancy coffee shop and drink the $7 organic latte, and they want to get to go to the hip wine bar and eat some organic avocado toast. You know, like they want the lifestyle, but then they want to sit back and criticize Elon Musk or whatever.
The machine that produces it.
Yes.
Right? The giant machine that then has like leveraged. Well, so what is this thing where somewhere in these advanced countries like America, where you're not even concerned about you, you're on this quest to make equality for others, that like like save trans children, and that becomes like this giant display that you have to get involved in to I'm just trying to figure out like what is going on with people's internal world, their makeup. What is this psychological maneuver to focus on something so obscure and so unrelated to you to solve? And this kind of like is starting, like I think there's an underlying theory here that it's like, rather than deal with your own inability to become this dude who has a yacht, you then redirect your attention towards, oh, that's not fair. That tiny guy over there in this country, he suffers, and I'll focus on his problems rather than the fact that, hey, bro, dude, you're not really winning at this game. You're getting fat and sick and poor compared to your parents. I think it's,
as you're saying it, I'm thinking it's those people are redefining status. And they're saying that the people who are in yachts and Lamborghinis are low, shitty, greedy people. And people who are woke or wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts or saving trans children or whatever it is, they're the really elevated people.
Oh, the enlightened
ones. It's like a shift in what counts as status.
Yeah, and so this has been tried throughout history endlessly with religion. Like, yes, I denounce all of the belongings and I go for this higher thing. What is the psychological drive and or mechanism that causes this to happen? Do you think that we're onto something by pointing out that it is potentially the people's lack of success and or lack of vision in their own journey, so then they attach on to, well, let's solve some insurmountable thing like global warming, or
I think because I think it's redefining status. It's sort of like we could create a silly little allegory about it. And there's like three dudes, and one dude's really good at working and he makes a lot of money. Yeah. And then the other two dudes are like kind of envious. So one of them's like, fuck that. People who make a lot of money, they're greedy. I'm going to become really altruistic. And so he goes off on the path and he feels really good about himself because he's altruistic. And then the third guy is like, oh, that altruistic guy, he's stupid. And the rich guy, he's stupid. It's actually what's best is if you're really good at hacky sack. So he starts practicing hacky sack and he becomes the best hacky sacker and he hangs out with the hacky sack crowd. And he's like, yeah, it's all about hacky sack. I'm the coolest guy. So it's just sort of like this status, feeling good about status.
What the fuck? That was the most ridiculous fucking story. What is the third guy? Like, because it was
the guy,
easy to
he's
see.
the good at hacky sack. But the point is, it's like capitalist rich dudes or religious gurus or super righteous environmental people to some degree. What I'm about to say I don't think is true, but if I simplify, they're all just doing it ultimately for status jockeying because the human ego needs to feel like we're high on the totem pole.
Oh my God. I think you've actually distilled it to its roots, and I feel like absolutely sick to my stomach from that. I feel like I'm really unhappy with what you just said. Like, deeply. And it doesn't happen to me frequently. Like, I feel empty and lost from that. That's horrible. Take it back. Say something else.
Well, I think it's not entirely true. Because what I was back when we were talking about the difference between Jesus and the wokeists, I do want to believe. Now, I never met Jesus, so I don't know, but I do want to believe that there are people like Jesus or Buddha, or I sort of feel like maybe the Dalai Lama is like this, and whoever. Thich Nhat Hanh, I really liked him. I sort of thought he was like this, where they're not doing it for ego status, where they actually have reached some level of like getting beyond their ego. And maybe there's more of those people. Maybe, the wise old lady who lives down the block from you who just seems like she's sort of reached some level of wisdom in her old age. Maybe there are lots of people who've reached this. But I think a lot of religious leaders and a lot of religious, pious people, a big part of what they're in it for is they've found a new little place where they can kind of feel good about themselves.
Oh my God. You know what I was thinking when you were describing this last piece was just like how much of your ability to play the game is your intelligence that's inherited. How attractive you are is genetic. It's inherited. It's like what start you got in the world is handed down from your parents. It's inherited. And I'm like, oh my God. When you distill the whole drive of the human to jockeying for status, and then you realize like, oh my God, your ability to succeed in this is mostly inherited. Like your life is almost pre-written. Like, and I don't want to then go down that debate of like, is there free will, which is like, this is supposed to be a story about America. And it's like, well, did America even have a choice? Like, is this just by accident that this is just the display of humanity in 2023 headed to 24 is this is just a display that it would have happened anyway. With it doesn't matter what happens throughout history, it's going to look this way, and then you could almost predict, well, what's going to happen in the future? What would be the next biggest display of this fundamental attribute? This fundamental thing. What?
Well, one variable that we'd have to consider in that question is, can humans start to mature above this status jockeying instinct, or can we not? Are we always going to be slaves to it? Because if we're just going to be slaves to it, then the status jockeying is just going to keep finding new, different ways to express itself. But if Jesus and Buddha and the wise lady who lives down the block, who've grown their egos up out of it, if that can continue and gradually spread, maybe we could, maybe civilization could really find a new shape.
Okay, so yes, this is the absolute vision of many people who come to the similar conclusion. But what I don't understand is, why aren't people just coming to the obvious revelation that this current design is the enlightened design? The design of status jockeying is the most enlightened form of existence that has ever occurred, and it is the path to ultimate humanism. The ultimate human design is this. We're looking it dead in the face, and then rather than just saying wow, look at it in its terrific display, we're like, oh, this is not correct. And it's like, what do you mean it's not correct? It's happening. It's fucking happening. And it's like, what? Why aren't we just rejoicing in what? How fucking amazing this is. Look at how crazy we are.
Yeah. Okay, I think that I like that point you're making, but now keeping that point alive, now juxtapose it with the teachings of Jesus and Buddha and stuff. And what do you do with that paradox?
Oh, I just felt horrible again. I'm serious, dude. This causes me to have such a cognitive dissonance. And it it's literally it's a thought stopper. When you do that, when you point out the two, I literally can't think. I'm like, what? This doesn't happen to me frequently. I guess I'm so full of shit. I just have infinite pathways. And when you put me dead in the face of an actual paradox, I'm like, clearly in this conversation, I'm kind of headed towards, let's rejoice in the fundamental design that we're watching. And so then,
which I like that. I think that's wise. But I also think that the Jesus Buddha teaching has wisdom too, and it's not easy to figure out how they're both can be true.
Well, let's shrink into these tiny bubbles, right? One is Porin and one is Dave. And throughout our lives, we jockey for status, and we work really hard, and you get these kind of titles of, oh, you're a doctor, and then you provide the answers to people, and you make money, and then you're a dad, and you're involved in a community, and that. Now, with that going on, to go back to the Jesus teachings, you then have to what do you do with the rest of today that will is it what do you do? Sorry.
Well, okay, so in the status jockeying world, there's a lot of good work, and there can be a lot of good things, but somewhere in the heart of it is, I want to rise up so that I'm cool, so that I have status in the tribe, and I can get hot ladies, and I can reproduce. And it's sort of this evolutionary psychology thing that's in my brain, and I kind of want to be the man so I can have sex with the healthiest offspring bearing mates kind of thing,
Yeah.
And that's a thing. And you're kind of saying, and nature or God created that, and look at all the amazing, beautiful, crazy things that we've created out of that drive. And I agree, that's beautiful, and maybe that's enlightened to just celebrate and embrace and go with that flow. Okay, cool. On the other hand, there's this teaching of the meek shall inherit the earth, or it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven, is this idea that if you get fixated on wealth or on ego status, it sort of is this dark dead end of never, you always need more, and you need more women and more cars, and you need to step on all the other motherfuckers to get there. So it's like this battle of me against everyone else, and I need to triumph over everyone else. And look at the history of wars and the exploitation of the planet. And even if you do triumph, the richest dude, oftentimes he's unhappy because he's like lonely and isolated in his mansions and his yachts, and all the people he's stepped on up the ladder hate him, and his slaves hate him, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a dark side to that. And so then the Jesus Buddha thing is like, if you're imprisoned in that ego status seeking, it's ultimately going to lead to unhappiness, and you have to ultimately transcend it. And I think ultimately that there's a shift in consciousness where, and I don't know if this is possible, but the theory is you can let go of that ego thing and then just live life looking for fulfillment and communion and hanging out with people and going surfing and creating art and enjoying food. And there's not a fucking ego thing.
Wow. I think you're there, that a possible path forward would be to embrace the fact that fundamentally, by nature, you and everyone surrounding you is driven towards the what I'm calling the hierarchy, right? There's just this drive that we can clearly point it out, right? And if along the way, rather than step on and enslave and then and go to war with all others, if along the way, if you could, is it possible to drag and bring everyone with you and high five motherfuckers along the way? And like, is that possible? Rather than just be like, oh, the hierarchy is bad, one must not. And it's like, that is a fucking futile attempt at